Hello students, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. Sumedha. Today in this video I will talk about immunity. So what is immunity? Immunity is the defense mechanism. It is the defense mechanism of the body. So it is fighting with the pathogens. So who are pathogens? Pathogens are the things which are giving you diseases. So bacteria, virus, fungi, those are the example for pathogens. So basically we can say resistance to the injuries or pathogens or the foreign substances immunity. So injuries for the body can be an external injury or inside the body is internal injury. So there's a resistance of injury. So there should be reparation of that injury. So there's a resistance to a pathogen. So bacteria, virus, fungus, they have caused disease. So they are going to go disease. So that thing will be prevented by immunity. And also our body is resistant to foreign substance. If we take foreign grains or incompatible blood cells, transplanted tissue to other person from one person to other person, these are the foreign substance. If the body is getting foreign substance, this will resist. So our body will reject those things because body has the immunity. You call it a defensive mechanism. Body fight with those things. So the immunity system can distinguish on body cells from the other cells, foreign cells. So that we call them not distinguish of self and from the non-self. This is very important in surviving. So if you take immunity can be divided into two types mainly. So we are calling them innate immunity and acquired immunity. Or we call them same thing as acquired immunity, or otherwise you can call it as adaptive immunity. When we talk about innate immunity, the response is rapid response, and it is immediate. So this will act on broad range of pathogen. There are so many pathogens. Innate immunity will act, and it is non-specific. That means for the bacteria or virus or same reaction is there, same way of defense is there, and you can see the innate immunity in vertebrates, also in non-invertebrates. If you consider this innate immunity, you can divide them into two ways. So external defenses and internal defenses. So what do you mean by external defenses? External defenses. We can take it as the first line of defense. First line of defense. So if you take skin, mucous membrane, and secretion are the external defense mechanism of the body, which is consisted with innate immunity. So if you take the skin, the keratinized cell layer will protect the body. So it will prevent the bacteria or all those pathogens coming inside the body will be prevented by keratinized cell layer of the skin. And also the cell layer of the skin will periodically shedding. There's a shedding of the skin. So with the shedding, some if the bacteria they are in on the surface of the skin, because of the shedding, these cells will shed. These bacteria will go out from the body. So mucous membrane. If you take respiratory mucus and digestive system, all these you have the uh, external defense. And if you take secretions, as example, tear, the washing action of the tear will reduce the activity of the pathogen is there, and if there's any bacteria or something there on the eye surface, they will wash out it. And if you take saliva, lysosome of the saliva will destroy the bacteria. And mucus secretions, and gastric juice, sweat gland, all these secretions will help to get the external defense. So these are the external defense which is included in the innate immunity. If we talk about internal defenses, this is the second line of defense. So the basically in the internal defense, there's a molecular recognition with the receptors. So there are mainly four types. So internal defense can be phagocytic cells, natural killer cells, antimicrobial proteins, or the other one is the inflammatory response. If you take phagocytic cells, the neutrophils in the blood and the macrophages of the tissue area, they will destroy the pathogens, destroy the non-cell things by phagocytosis. They will, simply saying, they will eat the bacteria or that non-cell thing. And if you take the natural killer cells, they will destroy uh, virus infected cells and cancerous cells and will protect the body. When you consider about antimicrobial proteins, interferons is a one type of antimicrobial protein. This will stimulate, so will produce antiviral proteins. So also interferon will activate macrophage to phagocytosis action. Actually, when we consider about this internal defense, there are in altogether immunity system there are if although we are dividing them into innate immunity, acquired immunity, there are connection between those things, connection between those areas. We will consider that one also in the so, so other one is the complementary protein. This one also antimicrobial protein. They the cell lysis and also they will promote phagocytosis and also complement protein will help in the inflammatory response. And the fourth one of internal defense is the inflammatory response. Because in the inflammatory response, there's an increased permeability of the blood vessels and dilatation of blood vessels. This will result in the specific area where the inflammation is there, you have high blood supply to that area because of the dilatation of the blood vessels. And because of the increased permeability of the tissue, there's a leakage of tissue fluid to the more tissue fluid is formed. So you will have redness of that area, and because of the metabolic action also the increase in that place. So heat is generated more there, and because of the tissue fluid collection, there's a swelling, and all of these because of the toxins and the toxin things and the other these compression of that area. There's a pain because the nerve ending is there. So inflammatory response is there. The main uh, contributing factors for the inflammatory response is mast cells. Mast cells will produce histamine and activated phagocytes will be produce cytokine. These histamine and cytokine also help in inflammatory response. So phagocytic action of the cell and natural killer cells, antimicrobial protein and inflammatory response will give rise to the internal defense mechanism. So these are the two branches of innate immunity: internal defense and external defense. So body defense, if you take the body defense or internal defense, otherwise innate immunity, surface barrier like skin and mucous membrane, that is external, and internal phagocytic, nuclear inflammation, antibody protein. Also, if you have got inflammation in whole body, systemic inflammation, you will have fever. This is the response to the that reaction, inflammatory reaction. You will have the fever. As a second figure here, we can divide the basically immunity into different types. So innate and adaptive immunity, but there's a connection with these two by T cells. Basically, T cells will connect all of this innate into adaptive immunity. Now we will consider acquired or adaptive immunity. This is a specific defense response. That means this will specific for specific pathogen. So we got T lymphocyte and B lymphocyte, and it is specific for particular pathogen, and this will very important in recognition of self and non-self things. Like previously we said that immunity is important in finding out who is non-self and self, because they are resistant to non-self things. And there's a important concept called immunological memory. So if there's a previously encountered pathogen, you will have some memory for that pathogen, and this will increase the next immune response. And the main thing in the acquired immunity, you can see the acquired immunity or otherwise adaptive immunity only in vertebrates. When we consider B lymphocyte, B cells, you call it simply saying B cell, but it's B lymphocyte. These B lymphocyte originate in the bone marrow and they are matured in the bone marrow. That is why you call it as a B cells. And T lymphocyte also they originate in bone marrow, but they are matured in the thymus. That is why you call it T cells. So other main important thing in the acquired immunity is antigen receptors. Specific protein receptor. There are specific protein receptors, antigen receptors, and there are other are called antibody. So we have to talk about T lymphocyte, B lymphocyte, and antibody in the acquired immunity. So what is antigen? So antigen will stimulate immune response. So it will react with specific cells or otherwise antibody. Antigen will react with specific cells or antibody. So there's a connection with there's a complex forming of antigen and antibody. So if you take viral proteins, bacterial toxin, flagella, cell wall, incompatible blood cells, transplanted tissue, all these are taken as antigen. All these will act as antigen. So basically, proteins and polysaccharide can be antigen. When we take antigen, there's something called epitope. It is the portion of the antigen that bind to specific antigen receptor. And in a one single antigen, there may be several epitopes. So in a one single antigen, you will have several epitopes that will bind to the specific antigen receptors. Antigen bind to the antigen receptors. So the acquired, whatever this adaptive immunity response can be divided into two types. First one is the cell mediated immunity. That is basically cells, T cells, mainly T cells which act on body for the immune reaction. So in this situation, T lymphocyte attached to the antigen and you call it a sensitization. T lymphocyte attached with the antigen. So the T lymphocyte will get sensitized. This sensitized T cell, there are two types of T cells, cytotoxic T cells and memory T cells. The After the activation of the cytotoxic T cells, they will kill the pathogen, kill cells. And memory T cell, what is the main function of the memory cell is the keeping the memory. At that moment, if the pathogen first previously find encountered pathogen will come in the next time, they will act. The memory cell will important in that way. So infected cells, some cancer cells, foreign transplanted cells, those are the sensitizites in which are sensitized in the T lymphocyte, and because with the cytotoxic T cell action, they will destroy it. And the other side of the adaptive immunity is the humoral. That's called humoral immune response. So you can call it as also antibody mediated immune response. Here the specific thing is we have to get some help of the antibody. Antibody will be produced by plasma cells. So B lymphocyte attached to the antigen and there's a sensitization of the B lymphocyte and plasma cell will secrete antibody. This antibody will neutralize and inactivate the specific toxin or pathogen. And as the memory T cells, we have the memory B cells. With the previous activation of B cells, in the next time, you will have a quick response. So there's a memory B cells. So antigen in the body fluid, extracellular pathogens, those are the specific target for the antibody. antigen in the body fluid and extracellular pathogen, basically bacteria. So what is antibody? You can call it as a immunoglobulin also. Immunoglobulin. So it's a protein and produced from the plasma cells. Plasma cell will produce antibody. It's a protein, and it is interfere with the activity of the pathogen. So there's a mark pathogen for inactivation. So they will mark the pathogen for the inactivation, and they will or they will destroy it. How this is happen? They form the antigen antibody complex, and this will activate complement system, and phagocytosis is there. So as we previously discussed that about the complement system, there are connection with innate and acquired system. So complement system and phagocytosis will act after the antigen antibody complex formation. So we can show the humoral and cell mediated immunity just like this, and T cells, the cytotoxic T cell activation, and memory cells in the one side, and the B cell, the plasma cell produce uh, antibody, and memory B cells that is in the other end, that is humoral end, and uh, you will have memory cells, that is T helper cells also. T helper cell will help you in both sides. That means that T helper cell will help in the formation of B cells also, and activation of B cells. So this is the considered of two types of acquired immunity: humoral immunity and cell mediated immunity, which is the part of acquired immunity. So there's a recognition of antigen. This point of uh, antigen will be recognized, and this will bind to antigen and synthesize. So T cell antigen present in cell. So macrophages, dendritic cell, and B cell will present the antigen. They will present the antigen to the T cell, and B cells. What is the antigen for the B cells is in the plasma, lymph, interstitial fluid. So after activation, there's a proliferation and differentiation into effector cells. That is T cytotoxic cell or plasma cells. So that is the primary immune response. So after the primary immune response, there's a way of elimination of invades. Cytotoxic T cell will kill the pathogen, and T helper cell will activate cytotoxic T cells. And plasma cell, how the plasma cell doing it? So plasma cell will produce antibody, and this antibody will neutralize and inactivate the specific toxin. So that is the primary response, primary immune response. And as previously we discussed, there's a immunological memory. So because of the memory B cells, memory T cells, there's a strong and rapid response in the subsequent encounter. So this is called secondary immune response. So primary is in the first time, and secondary immune response in the subsequent times with the using of memory B cells and memory T cells. So when you talk about adaptive immunity, so we can divide it like this. So this acquired to adaptive immunity can be acquired but naturally or artificially. Naturally mean and that naturally uh, you have to produce naturally. When you are considering about naturally, they are producing. We are talking about the antigen. Let's see like this. So that's naturally acquired immunity also can be divided into two types, like active and passive. So the natural antigen enter the body which trigger the production of antibody, that is naturally active. So antigen, so this is due to infection with the bacteria, or that antigen is coming to the body. Antigen go into the body and synthesize, because of that antibody form, and you got the immunity. And the natural acquired passive mean you're not going to prepare the antibody. The antibody, the important example is antibody passes from the mother to fetus. This is through the placenta. So you have the antibody. This antibody passes to the fetus from the mother. So naturally, this antibody is there. So that is why you call it adaptive antibody going to work. And antibody production is there in the first time it is active. Antibody coming from the other, antibody coming from mother to the baby, so that is basically passive. So antibody formation is there in the first, that is active formation, and passively in the uh, placental transportation. And you talk about artificial acquired, that means you will produce the antibody artificially. So what happened here? Artificially you produce vaccine. So vaccine, if you put vaccine into human body, it will act as an antigen. So vaccine act as an antigen, there's a production of antibody to the vaccine. So antibody formation is there, and so that is active. Antigen is there, so your formation of the antibody is there. And what is passive mean? You give the immune serum, that is antibody. Antibody as the by injection. This is you call passive immunity, artificial, but this is artificial. So artificial you are giving vaccine, no, that is active. Artificial you give passively, that is antibody, you are giving antibody. So these are the four types of adaptive immunity. So as we summarize, basically immunity is the body defense mechanism. This mechanism you can divide into two types: adaptive and innate. Innate, we talk about that as a external and internal, and we discussed that one previously. And adaptive immunity, natural and artificial. Natural, it is active and passive. Artificial, passive and active. In the adaptive immunity, we will the other way you can divide that into as cell mediated and antibody mediated. Uh, that is about the immunity. And I am Dr. Sumedhum, aided by a tutor. Thank you for listening.